My name is Dr. Kiosha Partlow. I'm the director of the Urban Health Institute. And we certainly, on behalf of CDU, on behalf of the Urban Health Institute, we want to welcome you to this month's Dr. M. Alfred Haynes Lecture Series, where we are focusing on intimate partner violence and highlighting a fantastic film called The Long Road Home, directed by none other than Ms. Kasuba. Just really quickly about the Urban Health Institute. It is a university, CDU's research endowment. And so the focus is to really build our capacity, build our research capacity to promote high quality translational research focused on health disparities and health equity. There's a number of initiatives, and Dr. M. Alfred Haynes Lecture Series is one of them. Next slide. Named really after our very own Dr. M. Alfred Haynes, who's an amazing leader. He fought for social justice, access to care. He was a former dean of College of Medicine and president emeritus. And here are the major objectives of our Haynes Lecture Series. Next slide. This is the agenda that we have. We have quite a bit in store for you today. I mentioned our fantastic film that we'll be getting, that we will play shortly. But we also have an illustrious panel. And I wanted to say that this particular Haynes Lecture is certainly in partnership with our Office of International Affairs. That is led by Dr. Lejeune Lockett. So it's an awesome opportunity to partner on a topic that not only touches the United States, but really has a global reach and intimate partner violence. And so we really want to highlight that. The Long Road Home is based in Zambia. So it's a fantastic opportunity. And with that being said, I wanted to introduce Dr. Lejeune Lockett, who's going to be our moderator today, but first she's going to tell you some interesting research and statistics on the global problem of international or intimate partner violence. Dr. Lockett?
Thank you, Dr. Partlow. I'd like to share my screen. I need to get, there we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Dr. Partlow. My name is Dr. Lejeune Lockett, and the director of the Office of International Affairs at Charles R. Drew University. And for those
I believe she's muted.
Oops, I am muted.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I was saying that my name is Dr. Lejeune Lockett, the director of the Office of International Affairs, and that Charles R. Drew University has a project in Zambia. And it's very important that we know that, because that's why we have a connection to the film that's being presented today and the topic that's being discussed. The film that we have, or the project that we have in Zambia, is focused on providing HIV prevention, care, and support to young girls ages 15 to 24. And some of them also experience some of the issues that we're going to talk about today. So this is very much directly related to what we do at this university. Now, I'd like to also give a thanks to Courtney Hammond, who is our high school research intern from Project Stride, and she helped me with these slides. Take note of this first statistic here, and we'll come back to it later. So the gender-based violence information management system is used in a baseline study in Zambia. And in that study, they identified 6 forms of gender-based violence. So that's rape, sexual assault, forced marriage, denial of resources, opportunities, or services, or psychological and emotional abuse. Now, it's also important to recognize that we're going to interchange the use of gender-based violence as well as domestic violence, as well as intimate partner violence. So you'll see those used throughout our discussion today. Now, a little bit about gender-based violence in Zambia. The study that we used from the World Vision in 2015 showed that 80% of the perpetrators are males, and the majority of them are married to the victim. That's really key. Also, that gender-based violence survivors tend to be women. They tend to be younger than their perpetrators, also with less education. Gender-based violence in Zambia is also, unfortunately, has one of the highest rates in the world, and actually for intimate partner violence. And if you see in the slide down below, there's a list of all the other countries, 6 others that are above Zambia. It's also important to know that one of the key factors in HIV infection is gender-based violence in Zambia. Now, who are the victims of gender-based violence? We often think that they're women, but we also know that that not just women, but men as well. But we've found that 50% of all Zambian women aged 15 and older have experienced some type of physical violence.
Thank you.
And urban women experience are more likely to experience gender-based violence than rural women. Now, for men, both men and women can commit gender-based violence, but the studies showed that men are more reluctant to report being victims. And that's because of feelings of shame or humiliation, generally that could undermine the masculinity. But we also found in that study that 70% of ever married women and 49% of ever married men have experienced some type of gender-based violence in the last year. Now, of the respondents to that study, they also talked about a high rate of them actually seeking some type of help. Now, the highest rate of them went to police for help. But then this slide also shows that when they went to the police for help, they were not satisfied with the support that they got from the police for various reasons that are listed on this slide. Corruption of some, not being respected, not being listened to. So this report from 2020 from the Zambian police noted an increase from 2016 to 2017 of the number of cases of gender-based violence that were reported. But we've noticed that from 2019 to 2020, there was a decrease in the number of cases reported. So what do you think might have been happening in 2020 to cause a decrease? I'll let you ponder on that as I go to the next topic here. And this is intimate partner violence as it's related to COVID-19 worldwide. So I wanted to show you these images here because it's very important to realize that COVID is real and it's touching many lives around the world. Now, not only is it touching lives, but COVID behind closed doors is showing us that COVID is an emergency. It's a type of an emergency, this pandemic that we're experiencing. And typically, in any type of emergency around the world, there's an increase in intimate partner violence. Now, as we see with social isolation, with increased stress, with being restricted from services and having economic pressures, that also creates an exponential increase in IPV or intimate partner violence. Also, the fact that many men and women are locked down in their homes with their abusers means that being safe at home is not safe for everyone. So there's also a strong correlation. So in many countries, the issue of female genital mutilation as well as early child marriage and forced sex are also part of the unfortunate side of COVID behind closed doors. So globally, 243 million women and girls aged 15 to 49 have been subjected to some type of sexual or physical violence by an intimate partner. And this is in the past year. So the question is, would this rate increase because of this outbreak of COVID-19? So the statistics are showing that most definitely there's an increase. So in France, we see a 30% increase, in Argentina, 25%, Cyprus, 30, Singapore, 30. Countries like the United States, the UK, and others are seeing, Spain, Germany are seeing all types of increase in the demand for services, looking for shelter and reporting cases. So there are national responses in different countries that would fall into these categories of responding to COVID-19 as it relates to intimate partner violence. So we see countries such as these that are listed here that give us examples of maybe extended hotel stay, women being excused from being in a lockdown situation, perpetrators being asked to leave the home while the family can stay, for example. We also see countries like this, an additional country responses, neighborhood watches, or hotlines that are set up. And in the United States, we're back to pre-COVID, where we saw 1 out of every 5 women and 1 out of every 7 men have reported experiencing some type of severe physical violence from an intimate partner during their lifetime. So if we were to look now in the United States, we're seeing that cities such as Chicago, Austin, Chandler, Arizona, New York are showing a drop in cases of domestic abuse or domestic violence. But in actuality, it's the drop in the reporting of those cases, and that's because of quarantine. So we know that because of the quarantine, people cannot get out to get services and to get the help that they need. So we're getting more calls from neighbors and witnesses and not from the victims themselves. So going back to our very last slide, our very first slide rather, that gender-based violence affects women and girls at a global rate, and that's 1 or 3 in their lifetime can be victims of gender-based violence. So I just want to say, hold on to that statistic and what we've just discussed in terms of these other numbers, and then we will explore this more with our panelists and with our screening of the movie, of the film. So I would like to take this time to introduce the panelists. We have such a wealth of individuals that will be on our panel. So as I call out each name, Dr. Ron Bailey, if you can please just tell us what you do so we can hear your voice just briefly.
Hi, Ron Bailey. Happy to be here. I'm currently the Assistant Dean for Clinical Education at Charles R. Drew School of Medicine and Science. I've been in this role for a year, since July of 19. And in my day job, I'm the Chief Medical Officer of the Kedron Psychiatric Hospital System. Kedron, we have both inpatient psychiatry, but outpatient primary care and outpatient psychiatry and outpatient primary care. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Next, we will have Shari Farmer. If you can please tell us what you do.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shari Farmer. I am the Field Deputy for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Bureau of Victim Services. So we assist victims of a violent crime.
Thank you, Shari. And Yasmin, if you can please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yasmin Tarver, and I'm the Director of Client Programming at Genesee Center, which purpose is to create and facilitate programming in the areas of education, vocational, and entrepreneurship. I am from Genesee Center, a nonprofit organization located in Los Angeles, California. We are a domestic violence intervention and prevention organization with a mission to restore and provide trauma-informed, culturally responsive, and holistic comprehensive services to survivors and their families impacted by domestic and sexual violence.
Thank you, Yasmin. So now I would like to introduce to you the writer, director, and producer of the film that we're going to see, and Kasuba is going to introduce herself and also introduce her film to us. Thank you, Kasuba.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited for this event and what we will do for, for this topic and victims of domestic violence. My name is Kasuba, and I am a socially conscious filmmaker and an agent for social change. And I am the filmmaker behind The Long Road Home. So The Long Road Home is it's a fictional story, but it's amalgamated from true events that have taken place in Zambia. And I got the inspiration to do this a while ago while I was at the University of Zambia. I found out that one of my close family members was in an abusive relationship, and nobody really had any idea what she was going through. Nobody had, they were like the perfect family, they were of a higher economic background, and they seemed very happy. So nobody really knew that she was being abused. And when she opened up to me about what was going on, I just did some extensive research and talked to counselors and different women in Zambia who told me about their experiences being abused. And I just couldn't believe that it was happening to so many women and people did not know about it. People did not talk about it. And so I wanted to do something that will get people to talk about it, get people to see what women are going through. And my talents are in film. And so I felt that was the best way for me to give a voice to women that have been going through this. And yeah, that was the inspiration. There's, a lot of discussion, like Dr. Lockett talked about the components of domestic abuse. And one of them that you see in my film is marital rape, where some women didn't even understand the concept of marital rape because it's not something that's criminalized in Zambia. And so women didn't, they knew it felt wrong, but they didn't know that it was wrong for a husband to force himself on his wife and stuff like that. So my film addresses those kinds of situations and just the role that our cultures play in it. And yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to say I hope you enjoy the film, but I hope that it will bring some insight to what's going on and will bring about some kind of change in our behaviors and to ourselves and towards victims. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now, Caroline, are we going to watch the film?
Yes, we'll be playing it right now.
Thank you so much.
It's a fictional story, but it's amalgamated from true events that have taken place in Zambia. And I got the inspiration to do this a while ago while I was at the University of Zambia. I found out that one of my close family members was in an abusive relationship, and nobody really had any idea what she was going through. Nobody had, they were like the perfect family, they were of a higher economic background, and they seemed very happy. So nobody really knew that she was being abused. And when she opened up to me about what was going on, I just did some extensive research and talked to counselors and different women in Zambia who told me about their experiences being abused. And I just couldn't believe that it was happening to so many women and people did not know about it. People did not talk about it. And so I wanted to do something that will get people to talk about it, get people to see what women are going through. And my talents are in film. And so I felt that was the best way for me to give a voice to women that have been going through this. And yeah, that was the inspiration. There's, a lot of discussion, like Dr. Lockett talked about the components of domestic abuse. And one of them that you see in my film is marital rape, where some women didn't even understand the concept of marital rape because it's not something that's criminalized in Zambia. And so women didn't, they knew it felt wrong, but they didn't know that it was wrong for a husband to force himself on his wife and stuff like that. So my film addresses those kinds of situations and just the role that our cultures play in it. And yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to say I hope you enjoy the film, but I hope that it will bring some insight to what's going on and will bring about some kind of change in our behaviors and to ourselves and towards victims. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now, Caroline, are we going to watch the film?
Yes, we'll be playing it right now.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God. running out. Oh my God, baby.
I'll go cook him.
You know what was really proud? Oh, hey.
With T-bone. Yes.
This looks good.
Okay, guys. Okay, before we get started, I just want to say a big congratulations to this man on his promotion, and also to just thank you for all your hard work. To Charles, everybody.
Oh, to Charles. Well done.
Yes.
Hey, goodbye.
Okay. No, I mean, first of all, I would like to thank all of you guys. Really, thank you. I really am grateful for this position that I have. And of course, I have to thank the biggie body, Sir Henry. No, thank you for the vote of confidence in me. Boss, I won't let you down. I won't let you down. No, but also like to thank Madam Chand over here for the recommendation.
Right.
It's my wife.
Yes, Chanda.
Hey, what's going on over there?
Oh, it's the nanny. We have to leave. Yeah. The baby needs us.
Please.
I'm telling you, gone are the days.
I agree with this man.
What the thing is, in a me, I get home these days, thinking I'm going to have some quality time here with Madame, you know, and the kids in the bed. You know me, I don't play with that. I'm multiplication.
And what about you, Chanda? Are you planning on having kids anytime soon?
I actually wanted to go back to school and get my degree.
And it's only been like a little over 2 years since we got married, and we just started to try it out. You know, there's a lot of time. I wanted to enjoy my wife.
Me too.
There's still time, guys.
The way time flies these days. God damn Buffy. Show us in PhD.
How much have you had to drink?
I mean, let's see. Well, we're not getting any younger.
Guys, come on, let's eat. Everybody, come on, let's eat. Look, this is how we planned it, okay? Family planning, guys. You ever heard of it?
For me, our experience, when I stopped taking the birth control pill, I was pregnant within a month.
Yeah,
It was about a month. Yeah, literally just within a month. It doesn't take long. Yeah.
Sense.
Straight.
So, how long have you been taking the pill?
What?
Don't play dumb with me, Chanda. You know damn well what I'm talking about.
Henry, it's late. I'm tired.
Do you even drink this?
Of course.
Drink it.
No, son.
Chanda,
Henry,
drink it, please.
I said I'll drink it after I bath. What are you doing?
Where do you hide your pills?
I'm not hiding any pills.
Don't be smart with me, Chanda, okay? I saw your face when India was talking about birth control. I know you. You can't lie to me.
I don't know what to tell you, Henry, because I'm not hiding anything.
Why aren't you drinking your muti then?
Henry, stop it. You're hitting me now.
I'm not going to hit you, but why is this half empty? Huh? And why aren't you getting pregnant? Huh? Why aren't you getting pregnant? It's been 3 fucking years, Chanda. Huh? Either you're not drinking your muti or you're taking fucking birth control. Which one is it? Just tell me.
I'm not on birth control. I already told you. I'm not on birth control.
So what? You're barren. What fucking good are you to me if you're barren?
Why would you say that?
Why won't you get pregnant? Huh? How are you worth 20,000 that I paid for Lobola if you can't give me children? Huh?
Now what? Potions and leaves from your grandmother will miraculously get me pregnant? Did you ever stop to think that you might be the one with the problem? And not me?
What did you say?
You lost your tongue. Can you stop? Shut up! Stop getting aggressive, bitch! Stop! You think I'm not a man? You think it doesn't work?
What happened? What happened?
Got you some coffee. Are you ready to tell me what happened? Henry. You raped me. What? What do you mean raped you? You forced yourself on me. Calm down. You don't believe me? No, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just, he's your husband. You know, sometimes I'm not always in the mood. And my husband insists. It's not like he's raping me. Do you look like this afterwards? Does he hold your hands together and shut you up when you scream? I begged him to stop. What do you call that? I'm so sorry. Well, have you thought of staying with your mom? Just for a bit until things can cool off. They're just going to send me back to him, they always do. You mean this is not the first time this is happening? Why didn't you say anything? Because it's embarrassing. How do I tell my friends that my so-called husband, Uwakula, is raping me? You know, if it were up to me, you could stay here, but I know my husband would want to get involved. You know, we have the baby, and Henry just got him this new job. His new job. Chanda, Henry is a powerful man, and Charles could lose his job just like that. You know how hard it was when I was the breadwinner. Mama, I'm sorry. So, Uzachita-chan, I'll figure something out. So, my dear, what do you want to report? Rape? Were you raped? You can tell me. You're in a safe space. I'm so sorry. Do you have any idea who did this to you?
It was my husband.
Sorry. Javi, is this the first time or has he done it before?
He has.
I have to ask you another question, but have you reported him before for beating you?
I did once. They said it was a domestic issue.
Domestic issue, ka? Sure, Chavi, pasana, yeah. You know, I know that this is a lot for you to process, and I understand that it must be very hard for you. The reason I'm asking you all these questions is because you cannot report your husband for rape.
What do you mean? What do you mean I can't report it?
I know. I'm not saying it did not happen.
It happened last night. How can I not report it?
And I believe you. No, but, you know, according to the law, when you married your husband, you gave him conjugal rights. And it's well within his right that
Wait. What you're saying is that he has the right to do that. Is that what you're saying?
If you can just calm down.
Okay, calm down. I need somebody to help me. I came here for help. Can you help me?
For the rape? Not at this time.
Then let me find somebody who can.
Just wait 1 minute. Do you really want to go out there and tell those men that your husband raped you? They'll either laugh at you or make fun of you. You don't want to do that. Hmm? I was afraid you're not going to come back. You okay?
No.
So you need to see a doctor.
I did. Last week. Pregnant.
What? I know the last couple months have been hard, and I hurt you. I mean, we hurt each other, but we can make it right. We can make it right. We can be a family. You and me and the baby, we can be a family. I'm so sorry.
Aren't you tired of saying that?
Yeah. Look at me.
There's absolutely nothing I can do to stop it. I love myself from the net. I hate myself for what I've put you through. You know me. You know my past. And I know yours. We're not perfect. I promise you, I'll live up to every promise that I've ever made to you. I'll do everything to live up to that. You know that all I've ever wanted is a family. You've given me that. Can we start fresh? Please. I really am sorry. Things change. You're pregnant. Shut up! Shut up, bitch!
Do you really want to go out there and tell those men that your husband raped you?
I begged him to stop. You said I'm not a man.
I'm running out there.
Oh my God, baby!
I'll go cook him.
You know what was really wrong? Oh, hey!
With T-bone. Yes.
This looks good.
Okay, guys. Okay, before we get started, I just want to say a big congratulations to this man on his promotion, and also to just thank you for all your hard work. To Charles, everybody.
Oh, to Charles. Well done.
Yes.
Hey, goodbye.
Okay. No, I mean, first of all, I would like to thank all of you guys. Really, thank you. I really am grateful for this position that I have. And of course, I have to thank the biggie body, Sir Henry. No, thank you for the vote of confidence in me. Boss, I won't let you down. I won't let you down. No, but also like to thank Madam Chand over here for the recommendation.
Right,
Oh, it's my wife.
Yes, Chanda.
Hey, what's going on over there?
Oh, it's the nanny. We have to leave.
Oh.
Yeah. The baby needs us.
Please.
I'm telling you, gone are the days.
I agree with this man.
The thing is, you know me, I get home these days, thinking I'm going to have some quality time here with my dad, you know, and the kids in the bed. know me, I don't play with that, huh? I'm not precision.
And what about you, Chanda? Are you planning on having kids anytime soon?
I actually wanted to go back to school and get my degree.
And it's only been like a little over 2 years since we got married, and we just started to try it out, you know, there's a lot of time. I wanted to enjoy my wife.
Me too.
There's still time, guys.
The way time flies these days. God damn Buffy. Choose in PhD.
How much have you had to drink?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's see. Well, we're not getting any younger.
Guys, come on, let's eat. Everybody, come on, let's eat. Look, this is how we planned it, okay? Family planning, guys. You ever heard of it?
For me, our experience, when I stopped taking the birth control pill, I was pregnant within a month.
Yeah,
It was about a month. Yeah, literally just within a month. It doesn't take long. Yeah.
Sense.
Strict.
So, how long have you been taking the pill?
What?
Don't play dumb with me, Chanda. You know damn well what I'm talking about.
Henry, it's late. I'm tired.
Do you even drink this?
Of course.
Drink it.
No, I'm gonna son.
Chanda.
Henry.
Drink it, please.
I said I'll drink it after I bath. What are you doing?
Where do you hide your pills?
I'm not hiding any pills.
Don't be smart with me, Chanda, okay? I saw your face when Mudia was talking about birth control. I know you. You can't lie to me.
I don't know what to tell you, Henry, because I'm not hiding anything.
Why aren't you drinking your muti then?
I'm gonna stop it. You're hitting me now.
I'm not gonna hit you, but why is this half empty? Huh? And why aren't you getting pregnant? Huh? Why aren't you getting pregnant? It's been 3 fucking years, Chanda. Huh? Either you're not drinking your muti or you're taking fucking birth control. Which one is it? Just tell me.
I'm not on birth control. I already told you. I'm not on birth control.
So what? You're barren. What fucking good are you to me if you're barren?
Why would you say that to me?
Why won't you get pregnant? Huh? How are you worth 20,000 that I paid for Lobola if you can't give me children? Huh?
Now what? Potions and these from your grandmother will miraculously get me pregnant? Did you ever stop to think that you might be the one with the problem? And not me?
What did you say? You lost your tongue.
Can you stop?
Shut up! Fucking ungrateful bitch!
Stop!
You think I'm not a man? You think it doesn't work?
What happened? What happened?
Got you some coffee.
Are you ready to tell me what happened? Henry. You raped me.
didn't rape you. You forced yourself on me. Chanda, you don't believe me? No, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just, he's your husband. You know, sometimes I'm not always in the mood. And my husband insists. It's not like he's raping me.
Do you look like this afterwards? Does he hold your hands together and shut you up when you scream? I begged him to stop. What do you call that?
I'm so sorry. Well, have you thought of staying with your mom? Just for a bit until things can cool off.
They're just going to send me back to him, they always do.
You mean this is not the first time this is happening? Why didn't you say anything?
Because it's embarrassing. How do I tell my friends that my so-called husband, Uwakula, is raping me?
You know, if it were up to me, you could stay here, but I know my husband would want to get involved. You know, we have the baby, and Henry just got him this new job.
This new job?
Chanda, Henry is a powerful man, and Charles could lose his job just like that. You know how hard it was when I was the breadwinner. Mama, I'm sorry. So, Uzachita-chan,
I'll figure something out.
So, my dear, what do you want to report?
Rape?
Were you raped? You can tell me. You're in a safe space. I'm so sorry. Do you have any idea who did this to you?
It was my husband.
Sorry. Javi, is this the first time or has he done it before?
He has.
I have to ask you another question, but have you reported him before for beating you?
I did once. They said it was a domestic issue.
Domestic issue, ka? Sure, Chavi, pasana, yeah. You know, I know that this is a lot for you to process, and I understand that it must be very hard for you. The reason I'm asking you all these questions is because you cannot report your husband for rape.
What do you mean? What do you mean I can't report it?
I know. I'm not saying it did not happen.
It happened last night. How can I not report it?
And I believe you. No, but, you know, according to the law, when you married your husband, you gave him conjugal rights. and it's well within his right that
Wait. What you're saying is that he has the right to do that. Is that what you're saying?
If you can just calm down.
Okay, calm down. I need somebody to help me. I came here for help. Can you help me?
For the rape? Not at this time.
Then let me find somebody who can.
Just wait 1 minute. Do you really want to go out there and tell those men that your husband raped you? They'll either laugh at you or make fun of you. You don't want to do that. Hmm?
I was afraid you're not going to come back. Are you okay?
No.
Do you need to see a doctor?
I did. Last week. Pregnant.
What? I know the last couple months have been hard, and I hurt you. I mean, we hurt each other, but we can make it right. We can make it right. We can be a family. You and me and the baby, we can be a family. I'm so sorry.
Aren't you tired of saying that?
Yeah. Look at me. I can't explain what happens to me. It's like I lose control. There's absolutely nothing I can do to stop it. I look myself in the mirror. I hate myself for what I've put you through. You know me. You know my past. And I know yours. We're not perfect. I promise you, I'll live up to every promise that I've ever made to you. I'll do everything to make it better. You know that all I've ever wanted is a family. You've given me that. Can we start afresh? Please. I really am sorry.
I'm going to change.
pregnant. Shut up! Shut up, bitch!
Do you really want to go out there and tell those men that your husband raped you?
I begged him to stop. You said I'm not a man!
They'll either laugh at you or make fun of you. You don't want to do that. Hmm?
No, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just, it's your husband.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. There were a number of people who joined us later. And so we will, now that we've finished this film, we're going to now start with our panel discussion. And we have a number of very dynamic people on our panel. We have Ms. Yasmin Tarver, we have Yasmin Tarver, we have Dr. Ron Bailey, Ms. Shari Farmer, and our the writer and the producer of this film, Ms. Kasuba Mukuka. And what I do want to mention, I think it's very obvious that not only is Kasuba an amazing writer who has created this very powerful film, but she's quite a gifted actor because she played the key role, the lead role in this film herself. So let's everyone give Kasuba a round of applause for her beautiful creation and that very thought-provoking visual experience. So what I would like for us to do is to start directly with the panel. We have a number of questions. The first one would be, and for the panelists, I think what we'll do is you just go ahead and jump in how you know, as you would like to answer these questions. The first one is, looking at the film and what occurred in the film, how does that correlate with intimate partner violence or domestic violence? Help us to unpack those definitions. Can I call on Shari? Do you mind answering that first, please? Shari Farmer?
Oh,
unmute.
When we talk about domestic violence and intimate partner violence, they really are the same thing. The difference is the people involved. So when you talk about domestic violence, oftentimes you're talking about partners. You're talking about male-female partners, female-female partners, male-male partners. Intimate partner violence goes much further than that. You can talk about child-parent, parent-child. Obviously, they are the same thing, but the difference is who you're referring to. Oftentimes when they're not married, and some people call it intimate partner because they are intimate partners. Some people call it domestic violence. So they really go hand in hand with regard to the situation, but oftentimes they are looked at differently based upon the players involved.
Thank you, Shari. Does anyone else want to add to that? Okay. So we'll go on to the, oh, sorry, Dr. Bailey, go ahead.
I know there are a few points. I thought that the film was well done. I want to make sure I initially congratulate the producer who we have today. But I thought there were 4 key elements that I've seen so often in my career when IPV or intimate partner violence is in play. First has been well discussed, the issue of the power differential. Clearly, in every way, the video shows the male having more power than the female. He was taller than her, he's bigger and stronger than her. The way people interfaced with him around the dinner table the first day, let alone later on when someone said that he's a powerful man. I think that the issue of intimate partner violence speaks to the fact that the person is at their most vulnerable, individuals who they are intimate with. That actually comes out in the fact that you actually relax around them and you sleep with them and you're without your clothes on, without other people around you to protect you. So you're most vulnerable, I think, physically and psychiatric and psychologically. And I think the movie brought that out, I think, very, very well. But I thought thirdly, the aspect that there very often are secondary or supplemental components that often create difficulty for the person who's been victimized. Often they may not have additional support services, or they don't have money to kind of get away on their own. Striking the scene when the young lady was trying to go for someone else to ask for them to let her stay there. I thought maybe she had money, she'd just get on a plane and go some other place, or get in a car, go to a hotel, or what have you. With limitations in that regard, they're much more vulnerable. And the fourth and final point is, if you really can't go to the authorities who are government supported to help protect individuals, when the authorities, because of the rules we have, the laws we have, can't help someone, this comment by the police person who said, when you married your husband, you gave him conjugal rights. I think that's really the most striking area of creation of vulnerability. That very often the government and the power-based authority has the ability to help those who are most vulnerable. I thought all four issues came out very clear in the video.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is similarities. If you can draw similarities to what you've seen in the film and then what each of you have seen in your respective careers or in your fields of work. So let's start with Jasmine.
Okay. So in the context of, looking at domestic violence and inter-partner violence, the overarching theme is that it can happen to anyone. Sex, race, class, socioeconomic levels, education levels, it can happen to anyone. And so I think sometimes people believe that it can't happen to them because they're not around a certain element or they don't have an exposure. You can have as much money in the world and still be exposed to domestic violence. And so I think that that's very important that people recognize and know that it can happen to anyone. And secondly, that domestic violence and interpartner violence come in many forms. In the movie, we were able to see the physical aspect, the sociological, and the emotional aspects, the sexual abuse, also what we would call reproductive coercion, how he was having her take a specific thing or telling her about birth control or taking away birth control and trying to control how she, as a woman, controls her reproductive system. There's also spiritual and there's digital and of course financial, which was also very much highlighted in the film. And so most people, when they look at this, the two areas of domestic violence and inter-partner violence, they think that it's physical, but it goes way beyond the scope of that. So you can see how an individual overarching, they love this person and they don't want their families broken apart. So you can see how all of these different areas can all conjoin to make a situation very difficult for someone to leave, even though they are being hurt and they don't have the peace that they should have in their homes.
Thank you very much. Shari, if you can please answer that question. Similarities that you saw in the film that reflect what you see in the field in your field of work.
So we are involved in domestic violence and intimate partner violence all the time. I will first say that as it relates to the United States, that when we see victims of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, there is an average of 6 times that they will come to us before they're truly ready to leave the life. And part of that, as Yasmin said, are all of those barriers that get in the way. Oftentimes it's a financial reason why they won't leave. There's many different reasons why that they decide not to leave, but we see them an average of 6 times. So we see the domestic violence or intimate partner violence where they are hit, maybe they've told someone and they don't believe them, and so they squash it. They don't say anything to anyone else, thinking that if one person won't help them, maybe no one will. And so we see that often. Here, 1 in 6 victims are male. And so for men, oftentimes they will not come forward, as Lejeune said earlier, because of the shame and guilt that they were actually abused by either another male or a female. So they will not come forward in many instances. But oftentimes we see the situations of domestic violence where they are abused, but they won't come forward for many different reasons. We see it a lot in same-sex domestic violence, where they have gone to law enforcement, and someone has told me that law enforcement told them, "You guys are the same sex, just work it out." And so when you hear that, the feeling of trying to find another law enforcement officer that can assist you becomes very daunting. So there are a lot of issues like that that we see with regard to the victims that we serve.
I don't know if you saw, Shari, someone from the audience just said that they see similar trends in South Africa.
Yeah.
So later we'll have time for questions and answers from the audience, and I would love to hear some of those other perspectives. Dr. Bailey, if you can answer that question from your work and what you do, anything that you pulled from that film that you saw similarities?
Similar to, I think, the earlier speaker, I'd agree. I clearly think that the power differential, again, I think was great, was greatly displayed. It's an adverse circumstance that occurs. I'm struck, again, I think, by the level, I think, of policy that really works against persons who are vulnerable and often marginalized, most commonly women, I think, in these settings. We did a little review looking at the literature, looking at the laws, in the United States, to see very often how inconsistent they've been, but how long it's taken really to kind of become much more advanced, I'll call it, laws that create some degree of fairness. Because I believe that whether it be laws that create some degree of recompense for persons, and call it, this case, very often women, maybe you'd have a lot less of that problem. Although the movie didn't show it this way, I think very often persons, very often men, who engage in this violent, adverse, aggressive behavior toward their intimate partners or their wives, what have you, may do more so because they know that no legal adversity can come to them if they harm this person, where you would not be allowed to harm somebody else. We have a lot of work to do, I think, as professionals to get this issue, I think, on the agenda of a policy-based agenda and protect women.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. So Shari, you had mentioned that it takes a number of times for someone to get out of their life. Can you explain from your perspective a little bit more by why people stay?
I think there are a number of reasons why people stay. One of those reasons is financial. People say that all the time, but if I leave, where will I go? I don't have a job. Maybe the perpetrator is the one that is the moneymaker in the family, and their fear is that if they leave, where are they going to go? That's one reason. There are another reason may be religious. There are some people who feel that, especially if they have children, that a man and a woman should stay together for their children. And I've heard many victims say, you know what, Shari, I know he hits me, but as long as he doesn't lay a hand on my children, I'm gonna stay. And so I've heard situations like that as well. Other reasons why people stay is fear. A fear is a big one. Is that, you know, as long as if I do what they want me to do, if I do what he or she wants me to do, maybe I can calm some of this down. Maybe it won't escalate. Maybe it'll be okay. Another reason is people think that if it starts verbal, maybe it won't escalate. Maybe, again, if I do all the right things, if I say all the right things, it won't escalate. For people here that are undocumented, oftentimes their fear is if I say something, I can get deported, right? And there are protections in place to help those individuals, but those are just some of the reasons why, and I'm sure some of the other panelists can chime in as well, but those are definitely why some of the reasons why we hear from our victims why it took them so long to come forward.
Thank you very much. Yasmin, if you'd like to add to what Shari just said, please do, but if you can also talk a little bit about some ways that victims can protect themselves from harm and ways that they can seek help.
Okay, so one of the reasons, again, that Sherry said people stay is fear. And most of the time when you see an instance of domestic violence on the news, when you've heard a drastic case, that's more so often after a person has left. And so they've left, they established a new scenery, and that person has come to find them. And most of the time it doesn't end in a positive manner. And so as she said, when someone leaves in 6 to 7 times, they're trying to figure out what works best for them. And with everything that Sherry just mentioned, also with being embarrassed, having low self-esteem, if you're part of an LGBTQ community, fear of being outed. And unfortunately now we have a whole digital world that in many ways can very much exacerbate all of these situations, because you have people that can post about you, say lies about you, spread them in a matter of minutes, and you have no way of controlling it. And also digital devices are used to track people and to track text messages, to track your whereabouts. And so although you feel like you have a cell phone, that person can have your cell phone programmed to tell exactly where you are. So the second part of your question is what can someone do? Find someone that you can talk to. And so what I will say, like in the movie, she did go to her friend and she did express, but you have to recognize that sometimes the individual that you are going to and confiding in is scared themselves. The first thing I would say is to do your research. If you can't use your personal computer, if you can go to a library, if you can go to somewhere else where you can have access to start looking for different types of shelters and to find information to assist you. Most websites have what's called a safe. You'll see a safe window, and if you need to exit out of it, you can. If you can, create a safety plan. And a safety plan is a plan that you create when you are actually ready to leave. And that includes where you're gonna go, it includes saving money, it includes having a bag packed and at a safe place. And the reminder is when you do decide to leave, do not go somewhere that the person who harms you knows. So you can't leave and go to your mother's house or your grandmother's house or your cousin's house. That's the first place that they're going to go. So you literally have to do the research to find somewhere where you can't be found. And that in itself is daunting and frightening for a person alone, not including if you have children who don't understand why they're being taken away from their parent. They just love their parents. Children are innocent bystanders, but equal in the abuse because they're being affected. And what they're exposed to and what they witness can further affect them later on in life. And I think someone did mention in the comments, they're called ACEs. And our Surgeon General, Dr. Nadine Burke, is talking about how these adverse childhood experiences, that's what ACEs stands for, can affect a child and can lead to them repeating these behaviors once they grow through their adulthood.
Thank you, Yasmin. Dr. Bailey, can you add from your perspective a little bit more about that same question? What are ways that victims can protect themselves or to seek assistance or seek help?
So I certainly agree with the earlier comments. The idea that one has nowhere to go is part of the problem, and I think that leads to a great deal of the fear and makes someone not leave. There are probably 4 things that we often talk about, I think, in organized psychiatry that one will consider. First and foremost, this idea that perhaps there are family or friends who are directly in contact who may come to you to bring help and bring resources. Smart not to go to their house. They may have to have money and put you in a hotel or someplace away that may provide some immediate protection. Second, would be a group of individuals who you may know who the perpetrator of the violence may not know. This may be a worker who you're partially friends with, but that your husband or the male spouse in this regard does not know. And that way this person would be able to go to them and get the information out of them. Same story, let me take you to a different place that's in many regards helpful. Third, of course, we look at agency, government groups or what have you. There's a toll-free number or 1-800 number, the domestic violence hotline, for example, and they're trained and identified to be able to come and swoop one up and get them very often and their kids into a safe house or a place theoretically where it would be protected, it would be isolated. Very often the information is not given out for their own safety and protection. I've even seen that throughout my career, forensic psychiatry, where they go to a different city or an entirely different town, especially in a larger state. And really the fourth part, I think, is the issue regarding law enforcement authorities. They increasingly now, when they will engage, we saw a part earlier that sometimes they don't engage, also have the ability to make a determination to remove one person or the other. So in some states, the law indicates that if law enforcement is called to the home because of a domestic conflict, somebody has to leave. They won't leave and leave both persons there. Our data shows that very often that's exactly when somebody ends up harmed, very often a marginalized person, and maybe even with early mortality, which is unfortunate. Law enforcement have the ability and resources to do so. So those, I think, are four considerations. I think the second one is the one that most people like the best because it doesn't involve government or agency. It may involve someone who's a personal friend who could help that their husband or spouse does not know. There may be a way to do it and maintain the confidentiality that's needed.
So I just wanted to say that throughout Los Angeles County, we have domestic violence shelters. Genesee is also a domestic violence shelter, and we have a 24-hour hotline that's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And once you call that hotline, we will ask you a series of questions and direct you into a safe place, taking in consideration the size of your family, where you're located, and how we can best help you. And these particular shelters are located all throughout Los Angeles County. And just in regards to Dr. Bailey's comment on police, and so in communities of color, specifically what we've seen with African American women, is that there's a hesitancy to call law enforcement because we just don't, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if it's going to be a positive situation or if it's going to be a negative situation. They don't want to re-victimize their partners. Again, most likely, like you said, someone's going to go to jail out of the situation. When police are called, we have a higher rate of children that are being removed from the home in DV due to other populations. And then there's also a fear of homelessness, because if we're removed from the homes, the children's removed from the home, that can exacerbate if there's move out orders. It just entails what happens. And so those three main areas are also issues that Black women and other women of color deal with when we're trying to actually resolve the situation. We can end up sometimes hurting or causing more harm, and they think about that, and sometimes that's reasons why they don't call as well.
If I can also interject, here we have something called DART and SART. So when a domestic violence call is made, not only does law enforcement go out, but a representative from the DART, which is Domestic Abuse Response Team, or SART, Sexual Abuse Response Team. They will go out with law enforcement on many occasions to assess the situation as well. In addition,
So I'm going to mute you.
In addition, what I also find, and piggybacking on what Yasmin said, is many times I talk to women of color that are victims of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. And when they're trying to get shelter, I was amazed at the amount of discrimination they come up against as a result of trying to find shelter. Some shelters seem very hesitant to even accept women of color, which is also a hindrance, because if they know they can't find the shelter, what are they going to do but end up right back in the arms of the perpetrator?
Wow, okay. Thank you for helping us to make that distinction. Another question. So in terms of, and I think I heard someone kind of leading us towards this, the area of research, more information, what areas of intimate partner violence, domestic violence, gender-based violence require more research, more information gathering, a deeper understanding? And I'll ask Dr. Bailey to please start us with that question.
Yes, I think that there are a few areas, and some points have already been addressed. We need to understand, as best we can, what maybe some of the social demographic issues are in play that lead to some groups being at a higher risk than others. I think you mentioned that I recently have a book written on this issue. I'm very happy that we have one chapter devoted specifically to African American women, and one of the early paragraphs points out that AA women are the group that's most likely the highest rate or risk of violence in these settings when there's an important violence scenario in place. So clearly, the numbers are not exactly the same, and some ethnic demographics come into play when we're trying to figure out which persons are at the highest risk of receiving, undue violence. I thought one aspect of the movie pointed out that not only had there been this issue regarding her husband forcing sex on her, but she had a black eye the next day, and she actually commented when asking questions. Someone said, "Well, my husband does the same thing to me," and the response was, "Well, do you look like this afterwards?" The reality is that it's much more so than forced sex, as bad as that is, when there's actual physical violence to all aspects, I think, of the woman's body habitus. I think another issue is the issue regarding alcohol and drug involvement. We tend to think very often that persons are alcohol impaired when this occurs. They may be in process, I think, perceptually, when alcohol is involved or drugs involved, it's clear when they're not involved. Or when involved, very often the answer would be, or the excuse, that perhaps I was impaired due to a chemical dependency. When not, perhaps it's a lot more likely the individual has some internal insecurity or their own individual problem that makes them, even when sober, react violently toward their intimate partner when they wouldn't react violently and involved in the same kind of conflict with some other individual, male or female. I think two key areas, there are several others, but I'll stop there, that I think more research may help us really direct us toward what decisions to make when trying to provide decisions to provide care for women.
Okay, I'd like to ask that same question for Kasuba, the filmmaker, and this is more in lines of how you feel that the arts can also help us to get more information to learn more about the issues such as intimate partner violence.
Yeah, so for me, even just doing this film, I had to do a lot of research. I wanted it to be something that was going to be accurate to what women, the film's about a woman, so most of my research was with women. But it was also it was very tough for me to find resources, when I was doing my research, and pretty much most of it just came from actually talking to these women. And so I feel like a lot needs to be done in just like making these resources available for people online. And I think something else that, I feel really strongly about is, the perpetrators too. Resources in terms of like, just to piggyback off of what Dr. Bailey was talking about, like, in terms of like alcohol consumption and stuff like that, but also mental health. And, I'm not like looking for excuses for perpetrators and stuff like that, but I just feel like we need to get to the root of where all this is coming from, in terms of just like even upbringing, how people are brought up and how that affects their decision making and how they live socially. And so I think that like a lot of research needs to be done on that end as well.
Thank you, Kasuba. So I want to just give a heads up to everyone. Kasuba mentioned the word resources. So stay tuned, because at the very end of this webinar, we're going to have a list of resources that we'll provide for you, for resources here in the United States as well as in Zambia and other parts of the world. So please keep that in mind. Also, we will soon have time for questions and answers from the audience. Not quite yet, but I want you to please start to write your answers in. Sana has already asked you, I saw in the chat there, and some are starting to write, but please feel free to write your answers. I'm sorry, your questions. If you want to say which country you're writing from, that's always exciting to know who's in the house. And what I would like to do now is to tilt this conversation a little bit towards COVID, because everyone on this call, everyone in this audience, in this virtual room is touched by COVID. So we looked at the statistics before the film that talked about how intimate partner violence, gender-based violence, domestic violence is clearly on the rise because people are in shut down or shut in situations and have more extended time with their abusers. And they have less access to all of these resources and services that our panelists have been talking about. So I'd like for the panelists, from your perspectives, if you can each just share any changes that you've seen, anything that you see that's kind of on the horizon as it relates to COVID and this particular issue of intimate partner violence. And let's start with Shari.
From our perspective, some of the domestic violence has decreased. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence decreased during COVID because we also recognized that people were sheltering in place. And so they couldn't necessarily get out of their homes. They could not call for help. There was people were very concerned about touching people, going into people's homes, having conversations, because people, the coronavirus was coming. People weren't really understanding it. And so they weren't sure what level of contact you could have with someone else. And as a result, people were sheltering at home. And, there are people that have maybe lived together for a long time, but have not really spent that much time together at home. And so as a result, tensions are high. People are feeling indifferent. People are feeling very stir crazy as it relates to the coronavirus. And so our fear is that there are a lot of domestic violence issues going on, but no one feeling comfortable to communicate with someone to let them know. And a part of that issue is some of the shelters, even when we call about whether or not they had openings or vacancies, their first question was, well, have they been tested? And I'm thinking, okay, now this person has been at home. No, they haven't been tested. And so the fear was that if they haven't been tested, how can they even get tested if they're sheltering at home without their perpetrator knowing? And so it created a tumultuous situation for a number of people that we feel are probably victims, but for whatever reason, some of them I've mentioned, just could not get out to be able to let someone know.
Thank you. So Yasmin, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that from your perspective related to COVID and intimate partner violence?
Yes, so on the other hand, there have been people that have been able to recognize and empower themselves too, that this was the time or the best time for them to actually make the move or stand the chance of increasing circumstances to them. So Genesee Center was fortunate to be one of the organizations to participate in the Mayor's Safe Haven project. And what that project is there are hotels geographically placed throughout Los Angeles to assist victims of domestic violence. And so we actually have over 90 families residing in a hotel in the Los Angeles area where we're assisting them with the same holistic services that we would have extended to clients that just come into our traditional shelters. So we haven't actually slowed down or say a decrease in people accessing services. It's actually increased. And what we've had to also do to assist those who couldn't come to us for services, we have a drop-in educational center that serves clients that are not in residence with us. And so we had to move to virtual platforms and conduct our vocational, our mental health, our classes virtually for those clients that were interested in and still needed the services, telephone check-ins. So we've just basically modified. COVID has caused us to look at things harder and sharper to see how we can best serve our clients and keep them and our staff safe and be impactful and resourceful at the same time.
Wonderful. Kasuba, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, just with, I'm always following domestic violence cases, obviously something that I'm passionate about. So for me, it's just been noticing all the news articles that are sent to my phone about the rise, and just really feeling helpless because I'm just in a situation where I'm always getting these pings about the rise in like so many different places just due to COVID, and just not really knowing what to do to help these people, because there's like Shari mentioned, they're not able to go because they haven't been tested, and there's so many limitations for people to reach out and get help in the first place, and then now like having COVID is just, it's very unfortunate.
Thank you for that thoughtful response. It is quite unfortunate. I'd like for us to back up for a minute. We had a question that came in actually from the audience, and it's related to something that was said earlier. We talked about one half of it, but not the other. So Dr. Mary from South Africa asked, when they choose to break free, what are the reasons? So we talked about why people stay, but we didn't talk about what are the reasons that people, that motivates people to actually choose to break free from the abusive situation. So who would like to take a stab at this first? Should I call Shari?
Why people, I'm sorry, why people leave? Why they actually get up the gumption to leave? Is that the question?
Exactly, because yes.
I think that first of all, if children get involved in any way, if the perpetrator enacts any type of violence on one of their children, that can be a reason why someone leaves. Also, I always say everybody has a limit. We all have a limit to what we will take. And, one time, maybe somebody will say, 2 times, maybe somebody will say, but maybe that person's limit is the 3rd time, or that person's limit is the 1st time. But everyone has a limit. And I think that's the reason why people leave as well. Also, being aware of the resources that are handy to them can be extremely beneficial in empowering that victim to know that there is help out there and there is some place where they can go. I think that is another real reason why people decide to leave as well.
Okay, thank you. That's a very helpful question. There's one other, this is for Kasuba. Dr. Catherine from the US asked, why abortion? Because in your movie, in your film, you ended it where she chooses abortion. So why did you incorporate that into the film, and how is that related to this topic?
Yeah, sure. She didn't actually make the choice. She was contemplating. But I saw that question too. And this is part of the abuse cycle too, because she did not want to have a child. He did. And so he was forcing her to take this concoction so that she could conceive. And she wanted to go to school. He wanted to have a child, and they were having problems conceiving, and it was her fault, and then on top of it, she got pregnant because he was raping her. And so she's at a point where she's just like, do I want to keep this child? Do I want to keep this child that's, born out of rape and born out from a man that's been abusing me in this way? Mm-hmm. So he was the one that wanted the child. She did not.
Okay, thank you. So one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Partlow, who's going to field more questions from the audience. So please, everyone, start to write in your questions. So Intula Simwinga from Zambia, from Lusaka, asked, how do you make men to be allies to fight against gender-based violence? So how do you make men to be allies to fight against gender-based violence? So Yasmin, can you please take a stab at that? And then Dr. Ron, I'll ask you to follow.
Yes, so we believe that men and boys are equal parts. And when people receive the education and they're informed, when they will make better decisions. So let's start with youth. We have our youth program at Genesee Center, and we have a healthy curriculum, relationship curriculum that we teach to teens starting in middle school all the way through college. And so what we're trying to show the young adults is how to have healthy relationships, what healthy relationships look like. Because if you have grown up and you've experienced seeing your mother being hit, your father being hit, et cetera, that's what you believe is normal, and that's your normal. And so if it continues to happen, you don't think that there's anything wrong with that because that's what always happens. And so if we can start at a younger age showing individuals and empowering them with self-esteem and tools to deal with anxiety, fear, hurt, anger, they can make better decisions as they navigate through life. And with men, having men be part of a conversation and allowing them to express their concerns, their fears, why maybe they did some of the things, how they can be involved, how they can help, how they can support. When you're able to show women and men positive role models, that reframes people's thinking. And they're able, even though someone might have harmed them of a male or a female persuasion, when they have surrounded themselves with someone who has shown them different, then they can now have a different way of looking, a way of thinking, and shifting from the initial negative mindset that they had when dealing with someone who harmed them and what sex they are, excuse me. And so continuously, we believe that men and boys are very important to this work, and that the education and that their support and uplifting them and empowering them to be a part of these conversations is very important. You can't just leave them, to the side. They have to be right there with us.
Outstanding. Thank you. Dr. Bailey, if you can please answer that question, and then we will start with open questions from the audience.
Yes, sir. I think that it really is a signature question, because all too often men are the perpetrators and women are the victims and marginalized ones who are harmed in this setting. And we think a lot in psychiatry about roles. I think that changing a person's role is essential. It's hard perspective to take. It's actually fairly disparate from what we discuss in psychiatry often, typically, because normally the male who's somebody's spouse, intimate partner, wants to protect them. Many persons, their husband or a boyfriend wouldn't let the next door neighbor hurt them, or somebody down the street, or you go to the mall, you don't want to be disrespected, but they go home and then hurt her much more so than anybody else really hurting her in a dynamic enterprise. I tend to issue to the consideration of a non-intimate partner, male in a woman's life. Her brother would protect her always. Her father would protect her always. She may have a male friend from high school protect her always. They see themselves in a very different role in protecting that woman. And those are all people who are not having an intimate relationship with her. So there's something about understanding the dynamics of the intimate relationship that then changes, it makes all bets off. And one thinks that then they have the role to dominate the woman or the female rather than to protect her. I think that's the issue. That's the issue for therapy. That's what you kind of talk about in that type setting. That may be more individual. The bigger, more egalitarian role is to it's proper education. This is such a huge problem in our society. If I didn't know it before, I learned a lot more about it when I was writing this book. I think I appreciate that we should be discussing this at the high school level or earlier junior high school type levels, because some persons are likely to be, I think, involved in it, unfortunately victims of it. We really don't discuss it until someone is actually already in some kind of a individual circumstance that's actually problematic. So I think more generalized education about the numbers, the statistics, the data, I think are helpful. Clearly, if we do it on television with commercials, that has a short-term effect. If we make a much more formalized component of how we address all other forms of violence, I think we're a lot more likely to gain some success. Those, I think, are two strategies that could be used that are likely to be helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Fantastic. So now we've had some very patient people in the audience that are on the other side of the world from us in LA. So that means it's 9, 10 o'clock at night where they are, and they've patiently been waiting and listening, and I know they have many questions. So we're going to kind of dive into this from the audience perspective now and have some chance for them to ask questions to the panelists. And my colleague, Dr. Kiosha Partlow, will facilitate that. So thank you, Dr. Partlow.
Thank you, Dr. Lockett. There's some amazing questions in the chat box and also a great deal of information being shared. Let's see, continuing with the questions. How do we strengthen the reporting system, the social welfare system, and the justice system?
So, Yasmin, would you like to start with that question? I think that's your lane.
Okay, so that's a big, wide question. So can the person type in regards to what?
While she's doing that, I will say, for instance, Department of Children and Family Services oftentimes gets involved when there's a domestic violence case, because oftentimes the children are taken away. But what's very interesting is when you deal with Department of Children and Family Services, right now they do not have a specific category for domestic violence. So I am on a cohort of a number of people that are looking to make systematic changes to how DCFS reports. We need to know the data with regard to domestic violence. So it's oftentimes we look at the roots, the leaves on the tree with regard to the problems. We're trying to look at the roots. We're trying to let's look at some of these systematic changes that we can try to make to be able to identify it and work with it. Some of those other root problems that Yasmin talked about earlier and Dr. Bailey talked about are dealing with children when they're much younger, because we don't know what they see at home. And if they see what they see at home, that is their normal. And we need to let them know what normal is versus what they're seeing at home. So some of the systematic changes that we're trying to make is allowing DCFS to be able to truly report it accurately so that we can truly help all of these families that may have problems. They may have a runaway, but they'll deem it as a runaway. But there's a reason that child ran away. And maybe there was some domestic violence involved, but without that drop-down information from DCFS, it would go unnoticed. And so that's one of the systematic changes that we're trying to make in the cohort that I'm involved in.
Thank you, Shari. Yasmin, did you want to circle back and respond?
Yeah, well, I guess I would say just in each area, it's education on both sides. So for example, I can give you one of the areas in healthcare. Initially, when we were working with some healthcare providers, let's say someone came in and they got treated for their arm, and they kept coming back and getting treated for their arm, but they wouldn't be asked any other additional questions from the health provider. So then we went into this particular health provider and did a DV education class. And what they found out was for this particular person that they were actually being abused. And this person that kept bringing them to the doctor was their abuser. And so I think in most healthcare settings now, you'll see when you go in for specific services, they'll ask you a panel of questions. They might separate you from the person that you came with. And so we've educated them that you have to go beyond just what they came for. If you could ask a certain set of questions, we can find out if this person is being a victim or being exposed to abuse, because this might be one of the times where they're alone to be able to talk to someone about what's happening in their home.
Wow, thank you. Dr. Partlow?
Sure. So the next question, I'm curious as to what formal procedures does LA County have in place to screen for and assess domestic violence? Any formal assessment that is ongoing and continuous?
That's probably, I'll chime in there. So the DART and SART organizations are phenomenal as it relates to domestic violence. They are the ones that actually go out with law enforcement, and then they can provide rape kits if necessary for the sexual assault. They can connect them to services. They can connect them to advocates with the LA County District Attorney's Bureau of Victim Services. But there's a lot of assessment. When there's a domestic violence case, then someone in DART gets involved in some way. And a lot of the agencies we work with, like Yasmin and I work, our organizations work together, but those organizations, they do a lot with regard to assessment. In addition to having case managers are really important because they really do guide that person through and navigate them through the process. So there's definitely some assessments in place as it relates to domestic violence. I think the bigger problem is the training. Training people to, like Yasmin said, ask the right questions. You may not see it right in front of your face, but if you ask some poignant questions, then oftentimes it comes to light. And then we can get that person involved with those assessments, with those resources, with those agencies that actually can assist them.
And so at Genesee, we're actually a DART provider. So we actually do have staff. And so when we have an instance where a client has to come directly into shelter, they would just come directly to Genesee. And so we are one of the agencies that's fortunate to actually have a direct DART contract.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions regarding accountability. So how do you hold family court judges, in addition to DCFS, accountable?
So,
go ahead, Yasmin. No.
That's another loaded question.
Yes.
So again, it's education. So when certain cases are being adjudicated and they don't come from the lens of a person who has experience with domestic violence firsthand, that's where we as an agency would step in and make sure that we provide the education. On the other hand, it's also important that the person that our clients that we're working with are fairly educated. We have an office in the Inglewood Courthouse where we help clients fill out restraining orders and go through the whole restraining order process. A lot of it, unfortunately still boils down to education and making sure that people are informed and they're empowered. You would be surprised through the diaspora of all these different organizations, what you think people would know that they don't know. So it's continuously informing someone, educating someone. Laws change, policies change, and a policy can be in place and it could take 7 months for someone to actually get that policy, read that policy, and enact that policy when it should have been 7 months ago. So for us, we have a full-fledged legal department that goes through those processes to make sure that they're up to speed and they know everything that they can to assist our families in that area and inform those judges and those other practitioners that they work with as well.
In addition, because I work for the district attorney's office, we have a family violence unit. And so all the prosecutors are trained on domestic violence. All judges are trained on domestic violence. But as you know, judges are human. They may have been trained, but sometimes the decisions they make would lead you to believe whether or not they remember that training. And so we have to work very hard, and it has to be continuous training because judges move around. You know, you may have been in children's court and now you're in family court. You may have been in family court, now you're in the criminal justice system. And so oftentimes it's ongoing training, and we have to remember that and keep up with that. And they have to become a part of that, just like we do training with law enforcement. We have to do training with law enforcement too, because when they go to a crime scene, when they go to a call for domestic violence, I always tell them the last thing I want you to say is, wasn't I just here last week? You know, I mean, saying something like that will definitely traumatize the victim to the point where maybe they don't want to say anything to you now. And so all of that ongoing training, that has to be ongoing, recognizing that we do have people in positions that feel a certain way about things and treat them based upon how they feel instead of what they should actually be doing for that victim. And it's ongoing. It is an ongoing battle.
This is Ron. I think that this actually, in addition, all those points are very well stated, but in the current era and climate we're speaking about, it's hard to miss bringing forth the term, structural racism. As I kind of think through the follow through of so many of these concerns. And when a structural racism issue is in play, it really puts the individual in this setting at great risk. We've already discussed the fact that very often this may happen more in some communities if they're less likely to call the police in the first place. The police may come and engage in other adverse behavior. I mean, you can watch YouTube almost any day now, and there's a story of someone who was African American. They called the police for some other reason, and the African American person was harmed by the police, in a fashion that seemed illegitimate and not done correctly. And additionally, if racism is involved, and if women can't get into homes or shelters, or if they're more likely to be exposed or violated, if you will, they're less likely to call in the first place. It has to have a downward pressure on persons calling and asking for help, and then choosing to stay in a setting, period, let alone for a longer and longer period of time. I also thought it was a very striking point. I didn't say it then, but somebody else I think mentioned it. The data is very clear. An earlier question, when women finally do decide to leave, very often many are at their, they cross the red line. But very often is they think that they're gonna die. If they've experienced this a longer period of time, so they've already been harmed or had injury before, but they think they're really gonna die. I mean, that's a red line for many. And or if the children are gonna be hurt at all. And if those settings, I think, are in play, and because of structural racism, that happens much more so in some communities than others. If you call the police and they don't come, longer response times. If those kinds of issues, I think, are engaged, then we're more likely to see this problem at a bigger, more magnanimous level. I think in the African American community, and why Black women would be at more risk. That's remarkably unfortunate, especially when judges have such a powerful opportunity to make this not be an ongoing problem.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Dr. Bailey, sorry.
We have a question from Pastor Sauls, who is also a collaborator and partner in ensuring that our lecture and our panel and also our film came to light today. And he's been posting a lot of great information and excellent points in our chat box as well. So he has a two-part question. How does the faith community contribute to intimate partner violence, domestic violence / gender-based violence? And then also, how can the faith community play a catalytic role in prevention and intervention? So how does the faith community contribute, and how can it help with prevention and intervention?
Well, one of the,
a little bit on that, just because one of the ladies whose story had a lot to do with my film. She was actually being forced to take a concoction from her husband, and that's where that came from. But one of the big reasons why she didn't leave was because she's Catholic, and she was told that there's no divorce in Catholicism, and so she felt trapped, that she couldn't do it. And my aunt, she was told by her priest that husband's a good man and she just has to learn to submit and stuff like that. So I think that the faith community does have a big impact, and I think not everything is black and white, and I just feel like maybe we need to be a little less judgmental and understand where people are coming from. Even with the issue of abortion, a lot of women don't even want to go that route, but like in this case where this woman is being raped, it's black and white, so I think that the faith community can do a lot in learning and also just being more understanding and less judgmental when victims come for help.
I cannot tell you how many victims I come in contact with that say, well, I really want to leave, but I went to my pastor, priest, minister, whomever of their religious faith, and I was told to stick it out because you're not supposed to get divorced. You're supposed to work through this, and hopefully you can, and you can stay with him. I've heard that by a number of victims. And so, like Kasuva says, I really think that this is an opportunity for faith-based organizations, for the faith community to really stretch their arms out in assistance of these victims. I mean, it's crucial because some of them stay and unfortunate things occur. when they are staying. And if they have the mindset to stay, but the perpetrator has not changed their mindset, only bad will happen. So it's definitely imperative that the faith-based community begin to wrap their arms around domestic violence and intimate partner violence, and really look at ways in which that they can really help the victims.
Thank you, Shari.
Lots of great questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a chance to get through all of them. We'll ask a few more. There's a question about what we do with the perpetrator. Does he or she need mental health support? Should we create such support for them as well? Because the victim can get out, but the perpetrator could continue the behavior with someone else.
So I think I would love to hear, all of you have such interesting perspectives on this. Kasuma, do you have your something to contribute to that from the research that you've done, and also if you can speak from the Zambian perspective?
Yeah, it's huge from the Zambian perspective. Just in terms of culture, I really believe that everybody is a product of their upbringing, and so when somebody is brought up in an abusive household, they're more likely to become abusive, even if it's something that they never wanted to do, just being exposed to that. And so I tried to, this was a short, but I tried to not make the perpetrator one-dimensional, just like this, just bad, like all bad, although he was. But I feel like perpetrators do need some kind of rehabilitation. And it's one thing, okay, you lock them up, but then what good does that do? I really do feel like there should be some sort of rehabilitation and learning for men as well, to just understand that seeing somebody and going to therapy is not something that is for weak people, but to just improve themselves as a person. And I think that we can be more, it's hard, it's difficult because they've caused so much pain, and so for you to just say to be more loving, but how people grow up you don't have any control over. But I think that they definitely do need and should get help.
And one, let's see, the last question from Latia Suttle, who's been providing a lot of great information for everyone in the chat box. So we thank you for that. What is going to be done about rogue judges breaking laws and ignoring protective orders and giving children to abusers when women try to leave?
That's a biggie.
I jump in and say that really goes well over the line. I mean, obviously, if a judge violates a rule or a law of engagement, what we do in the legal system is that's open for appeal. One key axiom in the legal system that judges generally don't want to be overturned on appeal. That would sound to be such an egregious act that a right for being overturned. That's not supposed to happen.
This is Latia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a commission of judicial performance that's over judges that you're supposed to be able to file complaints from. So they were just audited in 2019 is when their first audit was completed. So they had been in existence for over 50 years and had never been audited. So this audit was requested in 2016, but they're so corrupt and didn't want the audit to take place, they turned around to sue the state auditor to stop the audit from happening. So it was held up in court for a while, and it was finally finished in May of 2019. And it just showed that the articles actually said that rogue judges were left in their positions and no discipline, and it allowed them to continue misconduct. They saw where there were patterns of behaviors from certain judges, and they did nothing about it. So there are women going forward with trying to get protective orders or having protective orders, and then it's ignored by the judge. And then, yeah, you can file an appeal, but then an appeal is at the minimum $10,000 to start when you'd already spent thousands of dollars in family law court. And these judges are on the same sheet of music, just like the police. You know, when police do something, they say that there's this blue wall or whatever, they protect each other. So it's the same way here in LA and in a lot of different places. You waste all your money on appeal and they're just going to back up what the judge did that was illegal in family court. So it's the Commission of Judicial Performance that's supposed to have this oversight, and they're not doing their job. And then in the audit, there was recommendations put forward, and those recommendations still have not been done. So like, who makes them, you know, put these recommendations in place? It's not being done. You see what the deficiencies are, and you're not doing. One simple recommendation was to make the complaint form digital. You can go on the Commission of Judicial Performance website. There's a complaint form, but it's not digital. You have to print it out, handwrite in your complaint, and mail it. The audit recommended that this be made digital so that people can easily make complaints online. This still hasn't been done because they don't want it to be done. So I just want that to be recognized, that this is one of the problems. It's not that all women don't want to leave. Some of them that do try to leave, they still run into these problems in family court and children's court.
And they can't get out.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank
And
you,
so that, thank you very much. That concludes the questions. We're going to move on to the next segment, but I do want to mention, Kasuba, there's a lot of comments in the chat box really thanking you for your work, and I just want to read one. Well done, Kasuba. Your film has generated a very useful discussion about gender-based violence. I'm sure victims of gender-based violence will get help because of your efforts. And that echoes a lot of the comments in the chat box thanking you and well done for your work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Partlow. I also want to echo that, Kasuba. We have a group of I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that Charles Drew University has a project in Zambia, and it's called the Rise Up Project. So we have some of our team that are actually listening in, and they're excited to see you, and they're learning so much from you and what you have, you know, portrayed in the film, and just generated such a rich conversation will definitely trickle down to the young girls and the women that our project serves. So thank you very much. We appreciate that, and thank you for all of the panelists for this wealth of information that you shared. I think we could go for 3 more hours. We've just scratched the surface. There's so much, but this is really, really fantastic. I'm getting text messages from friends that are in the audience that are just blown away. So thank you, thank you, thank you. What I do want to make sure that we all know is that we have put together the team of all of us who are the panelists and others behind the scenes who you do not see, have put together a list of resources. So everyone will receive these, we'll send them to you digitally, but these are resources in Zambia, local resources in the United States, and some of these resources are also global, international. So these hopefully will be useful to you. We'll also make sure you get the slides so that you can have those for future reference, because that can also be helpful. We want to, Dr. Partlow is going to do some closing remarks, but before she speaks, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a unique kind of a partnership where the Urban Health Institute and the Office of International Affairs, we have worked together on other events, but not on this one. So your participation has been really helpful for us to see that there's there's a great wealth in doing these transnational type of gatherings around science and health. So thank you everyone for participating and for contributing so much. So Dr. Partlow?
Yes, and just to follow up, Dr. Lockett, I just wanted, on behalf of the Office of International Affairs, on behalf of the Urban Health Institute, I want to thank our panelists for just providing amazing, solid information. And as Dr. Lockett said, this is an important discussion, and we're hopeful that we can continue it and continue the work and supporting the work. And we want to thank, of course, Kasuba for trusting us to share your fantastic film with the world, with our audience. And we know how hard you worked on it, and we're really honored. So we want to thank you. And I want to acknowledge CDU's leadership, Dr. Carlisle, who is our president and CEO of Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science, and he's also the principal investigator for the Urban Health Institute. And so we certainly wouldn't be here without his support. And we also want to acknowledge Dr. Steve Michael, who is our provost, and he is such a staunch supporter of international affairs, everything international. And so we really want to thank you for your support as well. In addition to Ms. Sylvia Drew Ivy, we want to thank you for your support and for joining us today. We want to thank the UHI team and our Office of International Affairs team for really just ensuring that everything was executed so nicely. And lastly, we want to thank all of you for joining us today and for lending your voice. We couldn't get to all of your fantastic questions, but we'll be sharing them with our panelists, and we'll determine a way to get that out. In addition, all of the information saved. We're gonna take this information, and you guys will all receive an evaluation for today. And so in addition to the resources that we will share with you, we're gonna have the resources that you all have provided as well. In addition, we are recording our Haynes lecture today, and so we'll ensure that once it's available, that you will all have a copy of the recording. So thank you all for joining us, and have an amazing rest of your day and week. And thank you, Dr. Lockett.
Thank you so much. Be safe, everyone. Be well.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.